Have you ever wondered who walked side by side with Jesus, witnessed his miracles, and helped spread his message to the world? Over 2,000 years ago, 12 ordinary men, fishermen, tax collectors, and everyday people, were called to follow an extraordinary man. Today, let's meet the 12 disciples, discover how Jesus called them, how he spoke to them, and what ultimately happened to each of them. Let's start with Simon Peter, a fisherman by the Sea of Galilee. Simon Peter was first called by Jesus along with his brother Andrew. Matthew 4 verse 19, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Without hesitation, he left his nets behind. Peter was known for his boldness and impulsive nature. He even walked on water toward Jesus. Matthew 14 verse 29, Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus, but also denied him the night of his arrest. According to tradition, Peter was crucified upside down because he felt unworthy to die like his Lord. Next is Andrew, Peter's brother. He worked as a fisherman and lived a simple life by the Sea of Galilee. When he heard about Jesus, he immediately followed him and became one of his first disciples. Andrew loved sharing the good news and often brought others to meet Jesus, including his own brother, Simon Peter. He was known for his humility and dedication, quietly serving wherever Jesus sent him. 1 John 40-41. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who heard what John had said and followed Jesus. He first found his brother Simon and told him, "We have found the Messiah." Throughout his life, Andrew continued to preach and spread Jesus' message. He traveled to different regions to teach others about Christ. Tradition says Andrew was martyred in Greece, crucified on an X-shaped cross, which later became known as St. Andrew's Cross. His faith and commitment inspired countless believers even after his death. Now let's meet James, the son of Zebedee and brother of John. He worked as a fisherman by the Sea of Galilee. When Jesus called him, James immediately left his boat and followed. He was part of the inner circle with Peter and John, present in special events like the Transfiguration. Matthew 4 verse 21. Going on from there, he saw James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat with their father Zebedee. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. James and his brother were called the sons of thunder because of their fiery spirit. He became the first apostle to be martyred, killed by the sword under King Herod Agrippa. His bold faith showed how much he was willing to give for Christ. Here is John, the brother of James, known as the disciple whom Jesus loved. He was one of the closest friends of Jesus, often with Peter and James in important moments. John stayed faithful and never left Jesus' side, even at the cross. John 13 verse 23, one of them, the disciple whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Jesus trusted John with the care of his mother, Mary. Later in life, John wrote the Gospel of John, 3 epistles, and Revelation. Unlike the others, he lived to old age and died a natural death. His writings remain a strong guide of love and truth for Christians today. Next is Philip, who was from Bethsaida, the same hometown as Peter and Andrew. He was one of the first to follow Jesus and was quick to share the good news with his friend Nathanael, Bartholomew. John 1 verse 43. The next day Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, "Follow me." Philip was known for being practical and curious. At the Last Supper, he asked Jesus, "Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us." Tradition says he continued preaching the gospel until he was crucified in Hierapolis, Turkey. His life showed dedication and boldness for Christ. Now let's meet Bartholomew, also called Nathanael. He was honest and straightforward, once questioning if anything good could come from Nazareth, but later fully believing in Jesus as the Son of God. 1 John 45-46. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Nazareth, can anything good come from there? Nathanael asked. Philip said, "Come and see." Nathanael quickly recognized Jesus' true identity. Tradition says he preached in different lands and was eventually martyred in Armenia, some accounts saying he was flayed alive. His faithfulness showed his courage and love for Christ. Here is Matthew, a tax collector in Capernaum. He was looked down on by many because of his job, but Jesus still chose him. Without hesitation, Matthew left his work and followed. Matthew 9 verse 9. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. Matthew later wrote the Gospel of Matthew, showing Jesus as the promised Messiah. Tradition says he continued spreading the message and was martyred in Ethiopia or Persia. His story reminds us that Jesus calls all people, no matter their past. Next is Thomas, also called Didymus, remembered for his doubts after Jesus' resurrection. At first, he said he would not believe unless he saw and touched Jesus' wounds. John 20 verses 27 to 28. Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." When he finally saw Jesus, Thomas made a strong declaration of faith. He later traveled far to preach, with tradition saying he went to India, where he was martyred. His life shows how doubt can turn into deep faith. Let's meet James, the son of Alphaeus, sometimes called James the Less. Not much is written about him in Scripture, but he was known for quietly and faithfully following Jesus. Mark 15 verse 40, some women were watching from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James the Younger and of Joseph, and Salome. Though not as well known as others, James still carried out his mission. Tradition says he preached after Pentecost and was martyred in Jerusalem. His steady devotion reminds us that faithfulness, even in the background, matters greatly to God. Next is Thaddeus, also called Judas, son of James. He is sometimes identified as Jude, the writer of the Epistle of Jude. Luke 6 verse 16, Judas, son of James, also called Thaddeus. Thaddeus was eager to learn from Jesus and once asked why Christ would show himself to the disciples and not to the world. Tradition says he spread the gospel in Mesopotamia and Persia, where he was eventually martyred. His commitment shows courage and loyalty to Christ. Now let's meet Simon the Zealot. Before following Jesus, he was part of a political group that opposed Roman rule. Luke 6 verse 15, Simon the Zealot. Simon left his past behind and fully devoted himself to Jesus. Tradition says he preached in distant places, possibly in Persia, where he was martyred, some accounts saying by crucifixion. His transformation shows the power of the gospel to change lives. Finally, Judas Iscariot, who is remembered for betraying Jesus. Though he was one of the 12, his heart was not fully loyal. Matthew 26 verses 14 to 15. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you?" So they counted out for him 30 pieces of silver. Judas later regretted his actions, but it was too late. His story is a sad reminder of how greed and betrayal can destroy a person. Even though he was close to Jesus, he chose the wrong path. His life warns us to guard our hearts and stay faithful to God. The 12 disciples remind us that Jesus can use ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Their lives teach us to have faith even in times of doubt, to be humble while serving others, to stand firm in trials, and to share the good news wherever we go. Their sacrifices show that following Christ may not be easy, but it leads to a life of true purpose and lasting hope.